everybody, my name is Patrick Sust. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect at Flowable and very excited to give you an introduction into the Flowable platform today. We're going to do this based on a real life use case that we worked on together with a company from the insurance industry. But before we dive into the demo, let me give you a brief introduction into the Flowable platform as a whole. Flowable is all about standardizing and automating business workflows. We do not provide a product for a specific industry and to solve one specific challenge, but instead we provide a flexible platform that enables you as an organization to implement your workflows according to your own requirements. Approach, which means that also business modelers, business analysts without technical background can create and modify workflows from an end-to-end point of view. We try to be as open as possible, and we do that by supporting global open standards for workflow management, mainly BPMN and CMMN, but we also try to be as open as possible when it comes to integration in existing IT landscapes. Those three principles, flexibility, low code, and openness, make up the Flowable platform. We have different products, but our main products are really best understood if we think about the life cycle of a workflow. First of all, we of course need to model a workflow. And for that, we have Flowable Design, our no-code, low-code editor that enables us to create those workflows from scratch and easily adapt and maintain them. Afterwards, we want to make sure that those workflows actually do what they should do. And for that, we have Flowable Inspect, our automated debugging and testing tool. And once we know that our workflows work as expected, we then want to publish them and make them available on Flowable Work, which is our workflow engine that also comes with an out-of-the-box user interface that you can use, but you're not forced to use, of course. You can still use your own user interface if that's something that you're interested in. And last but not least, we want to keep an overview of everything that's happening on the Flowable platform. And for that, we have Flowable Control, our administrator cockpit. In our demo today, we're going to take the perspective of an insurance broker. And we're going to show you how we modeled a simplified workflow in Flowable Design, and then how we can interact with it directly in Flowable Work. For that, let me switch over to Flowable Design, our no-code, low-code editor. Here you can see a top-level overview of our use case. As I said before, we're taking the perspective of an insurance broker that gets a request for a new insurance policy by an end customer. In our case, we want to insure a new construction site. And then they contact different insurance provider, get quotes for the insurance policy, and suggest to the end customer the best insurance policy quote that they got. Even without understanding the CMMN workflow standard in detail, we can already very quickly get an overview of what's happening in that workflow. It starts off with initialization stage. Afterwards, we need to gather some data to create a policy draft. We then want to send out the information to different insurers and make a selection of the insurer. And in the end, we will finalize it to create the actual policy document. You can see that in all those stages, we have different tasks and different elements that define how our business logic should be executed. For that, we have a large palette of available elements on the left-hand side here that we can easily drag and drop into our workflows, and we can configure how they should be executed once this workflow is run on a workflow engine. Of course, the CMMN standard is ideal here because we have a workflow that needs a lot of flexibility and a lot of different events that can happen at different points in time. For that, CMMN is a great standard to implement it. However, you can see that for a couple of things, we also use the BPMN standard. For example, to initialize a new policy request, we have a link to a process model where we just step through the different tasks in order to make sure that here we have a structured execution. Obviously, BPMN and CMMN models are not enough to create a workflow from end to end. We need additional low-code and no-code models. For example, if we want to interact with external systems, then we provide a model to create a REST interface in a very easy way, such that they can also be used, those models, in workflows by non-technical people that do not necessarily understand the underlying implementation of it. We even have the possibility to include AI. Here we have an AI agent in a very straightforward way that is also maintainable and easy to understand for both the tech and the business teams. Obviously, if we have a workflow where humans are involved, we also need UI elements. And for that, we have a form engine where we can again use a drag and drop approach and a large variety of different out-of-the-box components to generate our forms. What you can see here is a form that we're going to see quite a bit afterwards, where we can define which information we need to gather for our policy document. And of course, managers are often interested in having dashboards to see an overview of all the different policy quote requests that are currently in progress. And we can also model our dashboards very flexibly according to our own requirements using Flowable design. So what does that look like if we actually publish this workflow now to our workflow engine? Let's switch over to Flowable Work, where the whole thing can be executed. Here we are now in our end user interface. You can see that we already created a mock company for this simple demo, and this can of course be branded and customized according to your own needs. You'll also see that now I'm currently logged in as an administrator, so I have a lot of different features available on the left-hand side. Different employees will have access to different functionalities. Some will be really interested in the work and the task elements. Others, maybe managers, will be more interested in seeing reports and dashboards. For now, let's focus on the actual application that we just created to create new requests for a policy. You can see it's exactly the same thing that we modeled in Flowable design before. We have a graph here on the top right and an overview of the different policy requests that are currently in progress. Now, to request a new policy, we can do that in many ways. Let's imagine that a customer calls us and asks for a new policy for their construction site. Then we can directly start it in the UI. We can look for that customer in our database, find it, and based on the information that we have in the database, we can create a new workflow. You will see that we have a direct link to the diagram that we have created in Flowable design before, and we can see how we now step through that workflow that we modeled in a very flexible way. And in the initialization stage, it's of course about first gathering some data about the construction site that should be ensured. For that, we have an open task where we see the form, which we have also seen in Flowable design before, where we fill in information about the policyholder that has been autofilled based on information in the database, about the parties that are involved in the project itself, the execution period, and the actual value that should be ensured in that policy. However, such a new policy can also be generated in other ways. If we go back to our dashboard, then we can, for example, initialize a new policy request over REST. We can also use event-driven architectures like message queues or Kafka, or even WhatsApp messages. In our example, let's say our customer, Anna, that we have already seen before, wants to create a new case based on an email. So I'll switch over to my email client where I'm already logged in as Anna Hardecker. I'm contacting our mock company, Infrasure, with the subject line new policy, because I want to ask them for a new policy for my new construction project, which is in Zurich, has 3 floors and 1 cellar. Now, if I send that email, we automatically monitor that inbox using Flowable, and we will see that we directly generate a new case, a new policy request that we can now go into. And we have an AI agent that already tries to extract all available information from that email and fills it in this form, which we have already seen before. So let's say for the project, for example, we can now see that this project is located in Zurich. It's a new construction and has 1 cellar and 3 above ground floors. So here we can really see the beautiful integration of AI agents into Flowable workflows. If we know that this specific customer always works with the same project owners and main contractors, we can already fill that in. And we can complete this first user task where we have to pre-fill the questionnaire. If we complete that, we will see that this automatically generates an email in the inbox of our customer, Anna Hardecker. If we look at that, we can see that we now get a link to an external website where we have to fill in the remaining information that the insurance employee didn't know yet. So let's click on that link. Now we are forwarded to a completely external website where the respective Flowable form is directly embedded and where we also have access to the variables that were already provided. So let's have a look. Here we can see that we are now on a portal website for this infrastructure company. We can see the form just as it was designed in Flowable Design, because here we are using a Flowable library. We can also see the information from the database. We can see the information that was pre-filled from the insurance broker employee, and also still the information that we automatically extracted using the AI agent. I can now, as Anna, complete the remaining information. And where it gets really interesting is, of course, here, when we are talking about the goods that should actually be insured. So here, maybe the value of the work is a total of 10 million, and we have some additional fees that should be calculated. So we can see that automatically we here get the total value of the project, which is also configured directly in the Flowable forms. And if the VAT should be insured as well, then we can add that to the whole sum as well. Let's maybe add a few more digits here, so it becomes a bit more interesting. Now, if I submit that request, we can see that it automatically is delivered back to Flowable. And if I now switch to Flowable work again, we can see in the diagram that we already completed that task, and now automatically a new draft policy was created that we have to review. So let's look at the open task. Here we now have a human task where we see a PDF that was created based on the information that we provided in the user form. So I could now edit this if something doesn't seem right, but since everything looks good, I'm going to say we want to verify this. And now as a next step, I can actually decide what insurance providers I want to contact to get a quote from them. So let's select 3 of those 5 insurance providers, and this will automatically send out a request for a quote to those respective providers. I can also see, of course, in the overview, the questionnaire at any point, and I can also see the different insurance provider that we contacted. So now let's look at the email inbox of the first insurance provider that we contacted. So if I log out here and log in with the respective insurance provider, then I will see a new email with a request for a quote. I can see that attached to that, we have the PDF that we just generated with all the information inside. This could, of course, also include additional documents if we decided to upload them in the first step. Now, I can reply to this email directly, and I can say something like, "Hi, we offer insurance premium rate of 3 per mil. Best regards." If I send this, this will automatically be processed again by Flowable, and it will create a new human task to see whether our AI agent that analyzed the email actually did a good job. So let's look at the open task, and here we can see that we have a new task to confirm the quote that we received. And we can see all the information about the insurance provider that sent in the quote, as well as the premium rate that was extracted automatically. So this was all done correctly. I will complete the respective task, and now I can look at the overview. I see the received quote, and now potentially I could already say I want to select an insurer. But if we only got one quote, that's maybe not enough. So let's also look at the email inbox of our second insurance provider. If I'm logging in here, we will see the same email, of course, a request for a policy, or request for a quote at least. And if I reply to them, then I can not only directly mention the offered premium rate here, but I could also attach a document where the respective information is stored. So here I will say the quote is attached. And to that, we're going to attach a PDF where we can see the respective quote. You can see that here we offer a premium rate of 2.3 per mil. So let's send out that quote, which will again, of course, trigger a process in Flowable. The AI agent will look into it, and then we get a new open task as soon as the whole process has been completed, where we as human employees can verify that everything was in fact done correctly. So here we extracted the premium rate of 2.3 per mil from the document that was attached. I'm completing this task as well. And now we can, of course, decide it's a good time to select an insurer. We could also automatically send out reminders, but for now, let's select that insurer, which will generate a new select chosen insurer task. And here for us, the decision is pretty simple because we have a cheaper premium rate for one of those insurers. We can also see what the total premium would be based on the value of the goods that were provided and on the insurance rate. So here we're going to choose the cheaper premium. I'll choose that insurer, and I can of course also provide a comment why I made that decision. For auditability and traceability, this is really important. So let's say this was just the better premium rate. I'm going to submit that, and we in fact completed that task. And if we now look at our workflow diagram, you can see that we already arrived at the final stage of our workflow, where we generate the policy document and we need to get an electronic signature. So here we can see that if we look at the open task again, then currently there's no open task. But what we got is in fact an email where we now can give an electronic signature. Flowable is not a tool that has out-of-the-box functionality for e-signatures. Instead, we understand ourselves as an orchestrator to orchestrate different external systems. And that's exactly what's happening here. We want to get an e-signature for the respective policy quote from our end customer. And for that, we're using a specialized system called DocuSign. You can see here that we generated a new document with all the data inside, and we can now sign this document digitally. I'll do this for Anna Hardecker, and I will finish the e-signature. Now, as long as the file hasn't been signed yet, our process in Flowable, our case, will actually pause, and we'll just wait until it gets a notification that the respective contract has been signed. So now let's switch back to Flowable, and here we can see that if we are looking at the overview now, the whole case was completed. And we can look at the attachments. And here we will not only see the questionnaire, but we'll also see the signed policy that was imported from DocuSign, including the signature that was given by Anna. This is, of course, a bit of a simplified use case, but I hope it still illustrates how we can use Flowable design and the no-code, low-code capabilities to generate models that are maintainable and easy to understand for both tech and IT people. Now we can then use Flowable work to execute it and also interact with those workflows in a very dynamic and easy way. For everything that we did, we of course have a detailed technical audit trail so that at any point we can understand what's actually happening and why it happened. We also have a business audit trail, and in our case, we're using that business audit trail to understand what decisions the AI agent that we involved in the workflow took. And we can see the respective inputs and outputs of it. There are additional capabilities, of course, that Flowable provides, but for now, I want to leave it at that. And I hope that you were able to get some insights into how Flowable can be used in the insurance industry, but in workflow management in general. So thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly to Flowable or leave a comment on the video. Thanks so much, and see you in the next video.